Welcome back to Full Circle Ancestry's Slovakia and More tour. This is part 5, Taking Care of Unfinished Business. Let's recap where we've been so far. Looking at the map of Slovakia, the journey has taken us primarily easterly across the country during parts 2, 3, and 4, when we most recently visited Tatranska Lomnica, Štrbské Pleso, Černový Kláštor, with a quick jump into Poland, and ending in Bardejov with its medieval city walls. Today we'll shift cardinal directions and head predominantly southward, starting with a very short jump to the small village of Hervarto and St. Francis of Assisi wooden church. Those who have tuned into my Ancestry Sidebar series will recall this church in number 7 of that series. A link is available in the show notes. During that impromptu visit, the church didn't happen to be open, so I didn't see the inside. The first order of unfinished business is to step inside the 500-plus-year-old structure. We start with a look at the small but intricately carved wooden altar, surrounded by walls and ceiling of wooden panels in various zigzag patterns. The south wall is entirely covered with paintings depicting several biblical motifs, originally applied to the walls in the 1600s. The north wall is more dominated by various statues and paintings, including one from 1653 depicting the Last Supper. Much of the decoration has gone through repair and restoration over the centuries, but this baptismal font is said to be from the earliest days. Standing in front of the altar and looking into the nave reveals this to be a rather diminutive space, considerably higher than it is wide. Making our way up to the organ gallery and standing next to the modest organ allows us to look down on the nave and toward the altar with a commanding view of this historical treasure that deservedly sits on the UNESCO World Heritage List. With the weather turning nicer than our chilly day in the Tatra region, it's onward to Prešov, the third largest city in Slovakia. Sweeping in toward the main street, or Hlavná ulica, it's time to close out a second piece of unfinished business, which is to showcase what was home base for my Slovakia Ancestry adventure from last year. Prešov is such a walkable city with its large expanse of pedestrian streets, lined with shops and eateries, and its central square anchored by the town hall, the co-cathedral of St. Nicholas, and a well-placed beer garden just made for a sunny afternoon. Here's a head-on view of Town Hall with its old town gate. The statue called Prešovský Morgan, a horse made from horseshoes. The Neptune statue in place since 1826. This interesting figure atop the roof of an art gallery, and the quaint entrance to a museum dedicated to wine. No, we won't be going into this one, but as promised, there will be more on wine in the next episode. The very street itself tells us we are in the historical Šariš County, whereas my ancestral villages are nearby in the historical Spiš County. However, during last year's adventure, Prešov's location made for a great launching pad to all my family-specific destinations, and it made for a nice place to land at the end of each day, offering great food, both traditional and modern. Along the central area of the main street are several memorials and statues, including the Soviet-era memorial to the Liberators, a bust of the Austrian Empress Sissi, another of Jonas Zaborski, an author and theologist who studied here in the 1830s, plus statuary of some not-so-famous types. Approaching the co-cathedral of St. Nicholas, let's look inside. The three-nave structure, built primarily in the early 1500s, features yet another lovely carved altar in front, an ornate pipe organ above the main entrance, plenty of eye-catching archways and stained glass windows, an impressive statue of St. George, carved altars housing lavish paintings, and details right down to this shining dove. One last treat in Prešov was an early morning walk up through the Kalvaria, where this Baroque church building is reached after a moderate climb along a wooded path past the Stations of the Cross. Its hilltop location provides a wonderful view of the city below. Now I had a chance to split off from our main group and join one of our guides to further retrace some steps from my Slovakia ancestry adventure a year ago. One of my ancestral villages is Vyšný Medzev, a village surrounded by the Slovak mining hills to the west of Košice. On the current visit, I completed more unfinished business by spending a little extra time in its sibling village, Nižný Medzev, which is also simply known as Medzev. Its center features a Marian column, and this time of year a maypole, and the Church of the Nativity of the Virgin Mary. I also visited the town hall, which was fortunately briefly open while I was there. I spoke to the woman there, who also descended from the German settlers tracing their origin centuries back. We spoke German together, and she helped load me up with a bunch of books and some calendars with local Medzev, or in German, Metzenzeifen, recipes. One final stop before ascending to the upper village was this exterior building wall showing a map of the lower village. Next we headed up to Vyšný Medzev, in German, Obermetzenzeifen. And here is the Church of St. Mary Magdalene. My connection to this village is through my great-great-grandparents, Adam and Anna Orient. After their emigration to the United States in the 1880s, they had a daughter who became my great-grandmother. Adam's occupation when he lived in this village was shingle maker. Recall that I previously pointed out some excellent shingle work in the open-air museum of Orava. I recently wrote an article related to shingle making and my ancestral connection to Vyšný Medzev, published in Naše Rodina, a publication of the Czechoslovak Genealogy Society International. Some relevant links are in the show notes. On my previous visit to Vyšný Medzev, we intended simply to walk around the village and see a few historical buildings. I was also aware of a nature trail which provided historical context for the area surrounding the village proper. That plan was altered when we ran into the gentleman on the left, who I ended up speaking with, in German, for nearly 3 hours. He took us up to the church's bell tower and to the one-room village museum. It was an unexpected and fantastic experience. This time around, I wanted to come back and experience the village's expansive natural surroundings, taking care of yet more unfinished business. It was a pretty day, so we set off on the well-marked trail. A walk along the Hummel stream valley, quiet today, would have been bustling in ages past with the activities that supported the village economy. These are highlighted by displays featuring information placards and hinting of the occupations they represent. Here a wagon wheel linking to the woodworking trades. Here the diminutive roofs invoke the shingle-making heritage. The stone wheel is from a now-defunct mill. This little contraption illustrated that water was key to powering much of the operation. There was also some lovely nature on this nature trail, a gently flowing stream of clear water surrounded by various flowers in spring bloom. This dilapidated relic is one of the hammer mills for which the Metzenzeifners were famous well into the 20th century. Here is a metal tank fed from a dammed reservoir behind. And this is the water wheel's frame. From the inside, we can see the tank and wheel through the deteriorated walls, and on the opposite side, some semblance of the mill workers' station. Lo and behold, an old mine tunnel. Mines were another key to the very existence of the Medzev villages. Today we would call this arrangement vertical integration. They did every step from mining the ore to smelting to using the hammer mills to make things like shovels and picks and other tools. The arrow indicates where we departed the village proper to walk up along the Hummel stream, and here's the location of this mine entrance. We made our way back to Vyshny Medzev on a parallel path that took us up higher, offering this incredible view with nothing but shades of green as far as the eye can see. Approaching the village proper, we see St. Mary Magdalene Church in the foreground, with the lower Medzev village downhill in the distance. Here we can see both St. Mary Magdalene Church in Vyshny Medzev and the Nativity of the Virgin Mary Church in the lower Medzev village. Let's end our side trip to the Medzev villages with an even wider view of the landscape, and rejoin the rest of our crew in Košice, the next and final stop for today. The unfinished business here is to finally see Slovakia's second city. During my visit for the Slovakia Ancestry adventure, I drove past Košice 4 times, but just didn't have the priority of time to visit. At last I take the opportunity to explore the Hlavná ulica and the city's central district featuring the Cathedral of St. Elizabeth and St. Michael Chapel. An evening stroll leads me to the Plague Column, erected around 1723, with saintly sculptures at its base and a veritable pile of cherubs leading up to the statue of Mary at the top. The chatter of a bustling downtown is mellowed by the gentle flow of a fountain ringed with the signs of the zodiac. All around are endless, interesting architectural features. Here's a quick peek at the Singing Fountain, where music plays in synchrony with pulses of water illuminated in vibrant colors. In this view, St. Michael Chapel and St. Elizabeth Cathedral can be seen in front of Urbanova Veja, or Urban's Tower, and the National Theatre, with the city spread out in all directions. It's an overcast morning, but nice enough to lift up and take a look around, above the 59-meter or 194-foot tall tower of the cathedral. As a point of comparison, while Bardeo's Radničné náměstí is 260 meters long and 80 meters wide, Košice's Hlavná ulica is 1.2 kilometers long, about 5 times longer, and just as wide at its widest point, although Hlavná ulica contracts almost to a point at each end north and south. Active streetcar tracks split apart and then rejoin when traveling from end to end. Let's take a spin around Urban's Tower, the cathedral, and the chapel at the heart of the old city. The high point of the church is Sigismund's Tower, with a wonderful cross on top and a sort of crow's nest appendage under one of its clock faces. Continuing to spin around, the theater comes into view, and at about this time I got an unexpected treat with several hot air balloons flying above the city. Finishing our spin around and heading back down to the deck, I came across the area of now underground relics of the old city walls, buried over time as Košice was rebuilt in the course of centuries. Now let's look inside the cathedral that sits where there has been a church structure in some form since at least 1380. Today's building is a massive 5-nave design with vaulted ceilings above its 5,000 seats. The many altars sprinkled throughout vary between the more ornate, carved designs with their pointy bits, and those focused on paintings or reliefs, often laid out in the triptych style. We'll end here for today, saying thank you once again for your attention. In part 6, we'll be coming full circle, plus tasting local. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Remember to check out the show notes linking to other resources I mentioned along the way. Take care and talk to you soon.